Well, we had a great time on vacation. Vacation is every day for me, but every day is a day of rest, a day of choosing to play and manifest as a beautiful divine expression on this earth. But it was good to just take some time with the kids and with Beth and meet others along the way, and we had a great time playing in the sand and the ocean and at the pool and getting a crispy suntan, as you can probably see via your video. So when Beth pops on, I'm sure she will here in a few minutes probably, she's probably tanner than I've ever seen her. She got a good tan this summer. But anyway, we had a great time. I gained some weight. And ate like crap the whole time. But we had a good time. But I'm happy to be back, happy to be here with you guys, and hopefully a few other people will join in along the way. I am going to, unless there's something on y'all's hearts or mind, I'm going to get started. Was there any questions or anything about some of what maybe you've had a couple weeks now to brew over? Is there any questions or anything that you wanted to bring up or get clarification on before tonight's class?
Okay, so let me see.
Yes, Evans, go ahead.
Okay, so how do you deal with anxiety in times when you are waiting for the manifestation of the thing that you desire?
Well, we're not waiting. If you wait, you always have anxiety.
Okay.
So a lot of what I actually go to great lengths and bounds to communicate with you guys what is really uncommunicatable. I sometimes would prefer just to give you a quick koan and send you on your way so as that you can come about it genuinely and authentically, the realization of who you truly are. That being said, when I say we don't wait on the desire of your heart, instead what we're realizing is that what you have in your heart is actualized already. It is realized in the moment that it's realized. In other words, what human beings are doing, those that do not know who they are trapped in the playground. They are searching and searching for meaning, for purpose, searching to discover who they are, searching to create, wanting to be relevant. And so they're always going to have anxiety. Even those that end up possessing what very few people ever possess in great wealth or love or whatever it may be, even they end up still in anxiety because they're searching for something more. And that want, I believe the Bible says, a hope that does not manifest make the heart sick. And so that's what humanity is experiencing. My message to you is that you are not a human being just going about as this temporary thing, going about trying to make the best of a horrible situation, trying to create something beautiful in an ugly world. My message to you is one of singularity. So what I'm saying to you is this: in the realization of what you are visualizing, it's no longer just something. If you can simply realize, this is a great segue into what I'm going to talk about. I want you to realize with me, And please keep in mind, everybody, I don't have the ability to mute or unmute people tonight. So if you could all do me a favor of muting and unmuting yourself if there is background noise, if there's something going on. Otherwise, the whole world will hear it. Back to the point. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. When you begin to simply realize that all things are energy, every creative and created thing, every created substance that you perceive with your eyes, your ears, your touch, your taste, all of them are in your mind. If you didn't have a mind, you wouldn't perceive them. If you did not perceive them, would they be? A tree is green because your mind translates through your eyes. Your eyes bring it in energetically and it translates through your mind as green. But to one who we call colorblind, maybe they're not blind, maybe we are, the tree might be brown. Which one is it? If you were to ask most people, they would say your skin is darker than mine. Is it? Maybe it's brighter than mine. See, we have all these terms in our mind and we're looking to try to live in this conceptualized world. That's the thing that we're hoping for, is nothing more than a concept. The thing that we're trying to create, when it's a concept that we really want to have, but we haven't realized it's a concept, just pure energy, then we will always hope for it and never seem to grasp it. And the moment that you realize that all things are energy, that all things begin as concept, as an idea, then you begin to comprehend that it's already yours. It's already yours. And when I say yours, I'm talking about incarnation. I'm talking about the form in which you possess. That's yours first. So understand first, when you're visualizing something, that it's already yours. Then you'll never be sick. Then you'll never be sick with anxiety. It's already yours. A true artist looks at a blank canvas, and when he has a picture in his mind of what he's going to paint, he recognizes this is already there. It's already as good as on the canvas. What a lot of times we're waiting for is we're waiting for the concept to take on form because we've identified as form. This is what produces anxiety, because anything of the future will produce anxiety. So again, I'm going to remind you of something that I said in earlier classes. Everything that you're creating, you're not creating in time. We're not creating for tomorrow. We're not creating in time, we're creating in mind. So you are creating from a place of your mind, not in time. You understand this? If you're creating in time, you'll always be waiting and waiting for it to come about. And even if you're able to grasp it, there will be something else to wait for. But when you are creating in your mind, creating on this beautiful blank canvas that is the mind, there's nothing to wait for. The very moment that you can see it in your mind, it is yours. In that same moment that you can see it, it's yours. And then that's when we go about in some of these other steps that I'm talking about, programming the mind to no longer sabotage that creation. Because sometimes we'll visualize something And then shortly after visualizing that thing, we immediately go into this space where all that'll never happen, or how could this ever be? I'm not smart enough or intelligent enough or well connected enough to be able to make this happen. I don't have the genetics for that body. I, and it's all this identification in the form and all of this trying to, so what happens then is we're able to take that mindset and we're able to begin to change that mindset through subconscious programming. And then once the subconscious is no longer sabotaging these things that we desire, these things that we're wanting to create, that's when we begin to start putting what I'm going to talk about today, and it's part 2 of what we talked about last session, was putting into action, not in time, but putting into action that thing that we see. And so I want to talk about these 2 different ways of existence that you might be able to experience, okay? Hey Kaylee, good to see you. So we want to talk about that tonight. There's really two different ways that you're going to experience life. You're going to experience life. Rewind. There's 2 different ways that you can experience life as an incarnation. If you're not if you can't even begin, if you're not at a place sometimes I forget that these messages get out to people that may not comprehend what even the word incarnation mean. That being said, you're just going to have to flow with me and just take it. For those that realize that they're an incarnation, they're going to experience life in 2 different ways. They're either going to experience life being the experience or experiencing life as a calculated flow or as a spontaneous flow. A calculated flow and a spontaneous flow. And I want to talk about those things. Both of those things are beautiful. I've had so many people over the years come to me and say, okay, Silas, I could never live the way that you live in this spontaneous flow of existence because I'm a planner. I like to plan things out. I like to have things lined up and organized and planned and so on and so forth. I could never live like you, just flowing and seeing what's going to happen and just flowing with the punches and just going where the wind takes you. I don't live in such a way. I couldn't possibly dream of living in such a way. Well, I want to express to you that, first of all, you can live that way. Secondly, you don't have to live that way. You can live in what I would call calculated flow. All right. Now, again, I want to rewind here, and I want to give you a perspective on what I mean by calculated flow and what I mean on spontaneous flow. I want you to picture calculated flow as the game of Monopoly or chess or poker. Okay? Calculated flow is the long game. If you're playing Texas Hold'em poker, you aren't playing just one hand at a time. The individuals that are just flowing, playing one hand at a time, end up going all in, and maybe they win, maybe they knock a couple people out of the tournament, but they eventually lose all their chips because they're just gambling. They're going all in. Somebody that that approaches the game of poker in the sense of being the long game. In other words, they're in it to win it. They kind of grind away a little bit more, but they're playing more of a calculated approach instead of just spontaneous, I'm going to go all in, go aggressive all the time approach. This is a very strategic way of doing things. In chess, you always, if you're going to play chess, you have to think 3 to 4 moves ahead, or you will be beat by anyone that actually knows the game of chess. If you're just responding to your opponent in the game of chess, you cannot win. You very seldom will. All right. So I want you to think when I say calculated flow as kind of a long game. Now I want you to understand when I say spontaneous flow, I want you to think of it as short game. Just flowing. Each second, each moment is a game of its own. Now understand with me right now what I mean by game. Your life, what you've been experiencing up until this point, is a beautiful, extravagant game. You are not here by chance. But this is a game. Even this, no matter how serious you take it, I still want you to realize that it is a game.
I'm going to take you out, Silas.
So when your existence, Kaylee, I love you, girl. When your existence is a game and your experience is a game of sorts, I want you to realize with me what's actually taking place. You're not going to take so seriously the things that are going on around you. If somebody beats you in a game, you go, they're better than me at the game at this moment. When you don't treat it as a game and you're playing the stock market and the stock market collapses, you're ruined. But if you understand that it's a game, you're not ruined. Just the money was ruined. The money was gone. The game ended. Start a new game. If your business goes under and you have to go bankrupt, start a new game. If your husband or wife leaves you, start a new game. Each and every moment in the spontaneous flow of existence is just this. This is a beautiful game. Now, there are some things in your existence that you are approaching as the long game, as more of a calculated flow. And then there are lots of things that you are approaching as a spontaneous flow. But every time you think of yourself, you disrupt all of the flow. What I mean is this. If you think of your body and your mind, yourself, what you would call yourself, as anything more than a game piece on the game board, then in some way you've taken it too seriously. Have you ever been self-conscious? Of course, each and every day we think of, what is self-consciousness? When I say self-consciousness, most of the time people think of they're out in a public setting and they start to get worried or fearful about what somebody else might be thinking of them, or they're out on the dance floor and they're going, I don't really want to do this dance because what if people think I'm awful at this dance or whatever. But that's not what I mean by self-conscious. When I say self-conscious, what I actually mean is anytime you think of yourself. And who is the one that's thinking of their self? How is it possible to think of yourself? When you think of yourself, what comes to mind? Seriously, every single one of you on almost every day of your life will at some point think of yourself. When you think, I don't have the money to do this, you're thinking of yourself. When you think, oh no, I'm so tired, my work has been so hard today, it's been a bad day, you're thinking of your self-consciousness. When you think, oh, what will so-and-so think of me, you're being self-conscious. All of this, so every time we think of I feel this way, I like this thing, I want to do this thing, this is all self-consciousness. You understand? Do you understand this? And more often than not, it's not only self-consciousness, it's self-identity. But when you think of yourself, what is the thing that you actually think? What is yourself? When you say, I have no money to go on this trip, What is the I that you're thinking of?
What comes to my mind is everything that constitutes the consciousness that I'm experiencing, but I don't think it would actually be the actual consciousness itself.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely not consciousness itself. That the consciousness isn't going on a trip. I see your lips moving, Stephanie, but I unfortunately your lips are too far away from me to read them.
Form.
The form, okay. Would you agree that when you say, I don't have the money to go on a trip, you are clearly talking about at least the body to some degree? In some way, you're saying, this body, don't have the money to go on the trip. What else? What else?
The illusion of the I, the illusion of the ego is crucified.
Yeah, but let's put that aside. Let's just talk energy here. Put that aside. The I, what is this self that you're conscious of? The form. Let me just help you out. The mind, where you actually believe consciousness is found. Now I want to illustrate something for you. The two greatest tools that you have to create are the mind and the body. Without the mind and the body, you're not an incarnation, you're not a creative player on the playground. Unfortunately, humanity has been trained not to think of theirself in terms of this consciousness or essence that is playing in the mind and body as if it's a game piece on a game, in this extravagant game. But instead we think of ourselves as the actual form, the mind and body that is in the midst of this crazy world and this thing that we're creating, and it's really becomes life or death. We forget that we're playing a game, and in some way it becomes really a life or death situation as to whether or not we sign this deal, make this deal, or are able to fulfill some promise, or are able to, in staying with one person for our entire life, or whatever it is. But we treat it as if it's this super real thing. This is our reality. And it's because we've become, our perception of reality has become all that there is. That's why the first 2 weeks I talked about not getting trapped on the playground, not getting lost on the playground. I can talk to you about not getting lost on the playground, but ultimately my speech, my talking to you about not getting lost on the playground will only help but so much. The truth is, you have to realize that you are beyond it, all on your own. That's why I've said from the very beginning in every teaching that I've ever had, for I do not know how many years, I am not giving you anything, I'm not teaching you anything, I am simply pointing to who you already truly are. In the realization of who you truly are, you begin to play and create in a whole brand new way, in a kainos new way. You begin to truly enjoy what just prior to this realization you felt miserable in the midst of. It's wild. It's what we call awakening. What I call realization. So the two basic premises or tools that we must first recognize in our creative process is mind and body. Now you can do it without body, but you can't do it without mind. This is the game piece. This is the first step. Now, as that game piece, you're manifesting in that game piece as if it's a virtual reality. You feel as if you're in the midst of the game. And in some way you are. You're in the midst of the game, you are in the game, you are feeling not only that game piece, but you're actually feeling every other game piece. It's as if you're the universe itself that's being entertained by itself. It's wild. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Okay. So we have long game, we have short game. In your existence, as in your existence in this game that we call life, you have many committed, or what I would call here, long game, strategic, or calculated expressions. And you also have very many uncalculated, not so strategic, much more spontaneous expressions, don't you? However, most people aren't experiencing either or. Even what they call strategic or calculated isn't an authentic expression. To be an authentic expression, you have to first realize that you are not the one, that you are the expression more than the one just expressing it. That you are both, the expression and the expressed. And so this is the dilemma. This is the great game, the great cosmic game of hide and seek, if you will. You are almost hiding from yourself, the divine essence. What does this have to do with creating? It has absolutely everything to do with creating. From creating in bodily form, to creating businesses, to creating relationships, to whatever it is that you're desiring to create, and whatever game that you're wanting to play. And there are millions of games that you can play on this earth, this huge playground that we're existing in and on. So each one of you that is experiencing a committed relationship, a marriage, whatever that looks like, it could be, it doesn't matter, it doesn't make any difference at all what that looks like. It could be multiple, it doesn't make any difference. It could be a monogamous committed, it could be a polygamous committed relation, it could be any number of things. None of that makes any difference. What do you want to create? But in all of that, that kind of committed thing is what I would call long game. You're committed. Beth is a life partner, and I'm committed to doing life with her in some way. And there have been throughout the course of our 18 years of this commitment, the rules, if you will, have changed, morphed, and been shaped according to our consciousness and according to our desires and the way in which we viewed the world. Those things would change. In other words, even though you're in a committed situation, whether that could be a business, you could feel committed to a business, you could feel committed to a partner. That doesn't mean that you, as the creator, as the one playing the game, you have the potential to talk to the others involved and change the rules. In other words, the games are yours. I want you to understand, you're not at the mercy of the game. The game is your creation. So, strategic flow or calculated flow is a whole lot of fun. Unfortunately for humanity, this hasn't become a lot of fun. As a matter of fact, it's become a stressful event altogether. It's quite stressful because you actually believe that you are the one that is trying to calculate the existence. You're trying to plan, and you get caught up in this trap or this web of control. you actually for a quick minute believe that in some way you can plan enough to control the environment around you, to control the game and the others involved in the game. This is complete nonsense. This is a web of entrapment that you will not very easily escape from. When you try to control others, you are not being authentic. The truest, because you're not recognizing that you are also within them. True strategy or true calculated flow, conscientious action is this. I begin to see what I want. Let's talk about this. I'm able to see what I want. I clearly see it. I'm forming it in my mind. You guys should have been playing with subconscious programming, and hopefully that subconscious programming has kind of flowed over into just creating and playing imaginatively in the playground, where you are thinking to yourself continually, what do I want? What do I want to create? How does this look? What does the world look like to me? What colors, shapes, and sounds and smells and tastes and fragrances do I want to display? Do I want to manifest? Do I want to create within the world around me? What kind of fragrance do I want to be to my friends and my family? That's something that you actually get to choose to create. Unfortunately, you've probably up until this point thought that you really were kind of just at the mercy of your surroundings, and you became whatever fragrance you are is what you are, and you really don't have a say in it. But nothing could be further from the truth. You are creating 100%. You are creating everything that is manifested in a game piece called Evans, in that game piece called Dean. You are creating it. So if you want to be a sweet fragrance of peace and equanimity to your family, then my God, you begin to create that. You begin to play and shape that in your mind, shape that within your personhood, and this begins to be displayed, and your family looks at you cross-eyed almost, because they go, who are you and what did you do with Dean Delker? This doesn't make sense to us, because this is who you've always been. This is what we think of you, but this is what we're experiencing now, and our minds are blown because now there's a different Dean before us. This is what the Bible means when it says, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creation. Strategically, the strategic or calculated flow comes in when you are creating these sorts of things, comes into play. You see it in your mind first, and then you begin to put it into action. This is where the body comes into play. You begin to put things into action. Now, each and every one of you can recognize that you've done this, unintentionally done this thousands and thousands of times over the course of your life. Somebody has planted a seed in your mind you didn't even know was there. You watched some sort of TV show or movie, you didn't even realize that the seed was there. Most of the seeds that you're dealing with, the subconscious programming that took place from the time you were 0 to 7, had very little to do with your individual consciousness, but it had everything to do with the corporate consciousness that you have been displaying. In other words, it had everything to do with your parents or the people that raised you or your surroundings and your environment. If you grow up in an environment that's run and ruled by gangs, more often than not, you will be a part of a gang, unless of course your parents showed you that you didn't need to be and planted the idea in your mind that it didn't need to take place. But those ideas in our minds so oftentimes manifest. They are, every thought and every deed is like a seed in the imagination or the garden of our mind that is ultimately at some point going to produce fruit. This is why it's so valuable and so absolutely essential that you begin to realize that you are not even your likes or dislikes. That you are not the things that you are attracted to nor not attracted to. You are not you're not any of those things. Those can be fun. Those, oh, I like this. This is wonderful. Typically, if you like one kind of food and dislike another, you don't force feed yourself the kind that you dislike unless, of course, it happens to be nutritious and needed for your body. You're not force feeding yourself things that you don't like, do you? But when you are a parent and you have a child and that child spits out its green beans, do you say, no, you need to eat the green beans? Do you keep feeding the child the kale and the spinach and the green beans, even though initially it wants to spit them out? And at some point, if you continue to feed the child the kale and the spinach and the green beans, that child will eventually like kale and spinach and green beans. It'll like its greens. But if you give up the moment that child spits out the greens and you just start giving it chicken nuggets, well then, my God, it will never like greens. And it will ultimately be fat. And a fat little bastard it will be. And so what we need to do is we need to recognize, much like that little infant, our likes and dislikes do not make us who we are. If that little child just likes the chicken nuggets and becomes that fat little bastard, it doesn't mean that that little child is a fat little bastard. It just means that the child ate too many chicken nuggets. And if the child that is no longer a child wants to change its physicality, its form, it can. But if the child identifies as, I am fat, it will never change its form. There's an enormous difference between looking in the mirror and going, wow, I've put on some pounds, I'm going to lose them, and looking in the mirror and going, I'm fat. When you look in the mirror and you say, I am fat, or I am this, or I am unathletic, or whatever, you have identified by your most current version of incarnation. You've identified by the most current version of the role that you've been playing. So understand, every game that you're participating in, you play a role. In the game called partnership or marriage that I play with Beth, the role that I play is husband and father. But it's just a role. It's not who I am. Most husbands identify as provider, and the moment they get fired from their job, they go into a great depression because, after all, now their role is diminished or completely destroyed. They are no longer the provider for their family. They have to be reliant upon someone else, or God forbid, the wife now becomes the one who's providing the most for our family. After all, we live in a sexist world, don't we? That thinks that, still even in this day, that thinks that men have to be the provider.
I want to provide.
So and you can. So I am not, it's not a shame for me at all to say right now Beth makes more money than I bring in. I don't even know if I'm bringing in money at this point, but Beth brings in more money. She pays bills. And I don't even care about those sorts of things, except that I'm a part of this. I'm playing this game. And if I was playing Monopoly, I would want to have the Monopoly money. If I was playing chess, I would try to win the game. If I'm playing this thing, then as this role, I want to play my part. When I go on my life is at rest and a vacation. I don't go on vacation with my family because I like to go. Listen, I am way busier on vacation with my family than I am on a normal everyday life. I was telling we were talking with a family down there that we kind of got to know, and I was telling him, I said, I do this because I get so much joy out of watching Beth and the kids have so much fun and get so much joy out of it. It doesn't bring me any more joy than any other day of my existence. I am joy. I am bliss. Sitting on the beach is not with nothing to do, the sand under my feet, a beer in my hand, is not more blissful than sitting in meditation looking at a field. It's not. Every moment is a beautiful meditation for me. Every moment is a beautiful, tranquil experience. But for most, they need to get away to experience that. In other words, they've been beaten up so badly in the games that they've been playing that they need to escape those games. That's what we call vacation. So we're gonna just put those games on pause for about a week or two, and we're gonna kind of escape so that we can just put all that stuff, that serious stuff, on pause. And so that's what I started with. If you think that, until you recognize that this is a game, you will take it way too seriously. Oh, I'm gonna lose my house. You've taken it too seriously. But this house has been in our family for years. You've taken it way too seriously. You've identified as the role instead of playing the role. Somewhere along the line, the cosmic actor has gotten lost in the playground, and the playground to that being has now become a horrific battlefield of sorts. So strategic flow, or conscientious action, strategic flow comes from a place of conscientious action. I see what I want to create, and I begin to put into action what is necessary to bring that thing into substance. The Bible says He calls those things that do not exist as though they do. So to Evan's question that we started with, how do you not get anxious about when you're waiting and waiting for something? I said we don't wait for something. We call the thing that does not exist as though it is. Because everything that you're creating is within. You are already in possession of it. And now what you're actually doing is, what you're going to do is you're going to employ calling it, you're going to begin to call it into existence. So shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth. It shall always accomplish the thing in which I sent it. So I begin to call it into existence. But again, this only works when you're not a divided kingdom. If your subconscious is sabotaging you, it doesn't work. I'll use again your body as a point. Each and every one of us at some point in our existence has said we're going to get into shape. So you start going to the gym, or you start walking, you start in some way, but most people that say they're going to get in shape don't have a plan for getting into shape. And they don't have a plan for getting into shape because they don't actually have a picture in their mind of what kind of shape they want to get into in the first place. They just know that they need to get into shape. That's like somebody coming to me and saying, I'm going to live on Venus. And I say, wonderful, you're going to live on Venus. I say, yeah. I run into him 10 years. They said, yeah. I'm going to live on Venus. I know I am. Okay, how close are you getting to living on Venus? Like, oh yeah. Well, I'm nowhere closer than I was, but I'm going to live on Venus. People do this all the time. Yeah, I'm going to create this business, or I'm going to create this relationship, or this thing or that thing. But they don't actually have any clear picture. In other words, they haven't started on the canvas of their mind. Remember I talked about having the borders and getting the very basics in line. You know exactly what you want, those foundational elements, and then you start drawing it in and getting very specific and detailed in your imagination. It's so important that you do that. Then you can begin to make a plan on how you're going to get into shape. I have to see first what kind of shape I want to get into. What kind of shape do you want to be? So somebody comes to me as a trainer and they say, I want to get into shape. I say, okay, what kind of shape do you want to be? What do you mean? Lots of shapes. Maybe when you say you want to get into shape, you mean you want to be fat. I don't know. Maybe you mean you want to have a bodybuilder's physique, and that could look like any number of things. Maybe you mean you want to have a power lifter's physique. Maybe you mean you just want a flat stomach. Maybe you mean you want to be able to run a mile without breathing hard. I don't know what you mean. You have to begin to get detailed with me. What does this look like for you? You have to have the detail in your mind before you ever put the action in place. Otherwise, what you do is you say, I'm going to get into shape. You go to the gym for a week or two, and then you leave the gym. After a week or two, you get frustrated. Oh, this isn't working out. I really don't know oh man, this is just hard work. This is not going as I planned. I'm not losing the weight. You look in the mirror, you feel like you look the same. You step on the scale, you've only lost a half a pound, and you say, my God, this isn't working. I quit. No one's ever done anything like this before, I know. But this is what human beings are doing because they're too closely identified with the story. They create the story of who they are. This is what's called consciousness. Unfortunately, what most people call consciousness is nothing more than a narrative, a big game, a storyline for a game. This is who I am. And what I'm telling you is that is not who you are. This moment of realization comes to you, you see what you want, and now I can put into action, or at least have somebody that knows what they're doing help me put into action what I see, so that I can begin to create that thing that I want, that I'm able to clearly see in my mind. And the kingdom divided against itself will not stand. So because you are a kingdom, or Jesus said, where 2 or 3 agree on earth concerning anything, they shall have it. And so when you are in full agreement within your own being, these things are much more easily able to be manifested. And you're able to begin to strategically flow. And what that looks like is now I see what I want in my mind, and I'm able to clearly lay out the plan in this moment for getting this thing to manifest in existence on the playground. The plan is in my mind, so it's already real. This week, I'm going to do this. Next week, this is what's going to happen. And you're fully aware that maybe stumbling blocks might come along the way. This is where spontaneous flow comes in, because sometimes you have to, in the midst of something coming, a stumbling block being thrown in your way, you have to change the plan, so to speak. And you get good at changing those things, changing the parameters, changing the timelines, changing the details for the thing that you want to create. This is absolutely fine. But you don't just start with, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm gonna get to the gym, I'm gonna go to the gym, I'm gonna use this program, and I'm gonna be good. I've met people, Stephanie knows all this all too well, I'm sure, being an ex-bodybuilder. I have met people, and so many hundreds of people, that start to use a workout program and they lose the weight. They start to get in the shape that they've desired, and they lose the weight. And within a short period of time, they are feeling better about themselves than ever. Unfortunately, what they didn't realize was how impermanent that workout plan was. And they begin to plateau, and then with frustration comes, and the next thing you know, they're packing the weight back on. Because one workout plan or program isn't going to fix you or create the body of your dreams. That's just one step to creating the body of your dreams. You have to have a progressive plan in place to be able to create that thing that you desire. This is strategic. But I need you to recognize all the strategy. If you're planning a business, then all of the strategy that's going into this business, the deals that you're going to make, the calls that you need to make, each one of these little things, not one of them is bigger or smaller than another. Please realize this. Recognize that in the game of chess, I learned this when I first started playing chess as a small child. In the game, I got my ass whooped by my dad. And as a student, I've always been a student. As a student, I was like, man, what in the world happened? I forget how many moves it was in, but I just got demolished. And Dad looked at me and he said, you know what the most important piece on a chessboard is? And like any novice, any uneducated, untrained mind at chess, I said the queen is the most important person. I was kind of going back and forth. Well, the king is the most valuable because if you lose the king, you lose. But the queen is the strongest. It has to be the most important because it can move in every direction. And he looked at me and he said, no, the pawn is. The pawn is the most important piece. And I said, why would... And I'm like, what? It didn't compute to my mind. But the pawn is where almost the vast majority, because there's so many more pawns than there are queens, and so much more strategy goes in that. I need you to recognize if you're trying to plan a business, doesn't matter what that business is, that each and every small move you make, see, when you move your little pawn to one space ahead, your opponents or the other people in the game, they don't even think anything of it. You move the queen and it gets everybody's attention. You move a knight and everybody's paying attention. But you move your little pawn, no, we don't care about the pawn. But that one little move, Harm, is just as important and as ultimate as any other move, because what that one little move is doing is it's setting the table for every other move. Every single thought that you have is setting the table for every other thought that you will have. So when you are planning something, strategically planning, you're planning, I'm doing this move. But in conscientious action, the thing about conscientious action is this: you are recognizing the full power of that move. You are not taking it lightly. You are fully mindful of it because it is a present move, even though it actually physically hasn't manifested yet. You are fully aware of it and you are enjoying the entirety of it. You are fully invested in it. If you are a good student of mine, you will know that washing a plate can be the most ecstatic moment of your life and should be the most ecstatic moment of your life. Because in that moment, there is nothing else but that plate. And you can absolutely adore that plate like you would adore washing the baby Jesus. Scrubbing that little plate like you would scrub the little booty of the baby Jesus in a bathtub. Right? It's just loving it and gently caring for it and tenderly being mindful of it. This is absolutely vital that you recognize, whether you're talking about a business or even a relationship, you're playing a game of sorts. What am I saying? What am I doing? You know, most people are doing this unintentionally in the game of relationships. They completely unintentionally do this thing called playing hard to get. Have you ever experienced that? I'm going to tell you, I won't say which gender is the best at it, but there's one specific gender that is wonderful at playing the game of hard to get. Well, I'll leave that up as a mystery for everyone. They play all of this, people play this game of hard to get. Well, oh no, I don't want this. Or have you ever heard somebody play the game of fishing for compliments? And they're just looking for it. And you have an opportunity to spontaneously flow. And if you give in and you just start, when people fish for compliments, ask Beth, I don't give her the compliments. She used to hate it so horribly. She would be searching for compliments, well, like, do you like, well, what do you think about my hair? Like, like whatever it might be. And it doesn't matter who it is. I don't go out of my way. I'm not playing that game. Because once you start feeding that machine, you always have to feed it. I'll give you all the compliments in the world, but not because you're demanding them, but because they authentically are being expressed from me. And the truth is, if you demand a compliment or you try to demand love, that's you trying to control something because you've identified as the game piece. That is not illusion, that's delusion. If I demand for Kevin to compliment me, guess what? It's not gonna be an authentic compliment. Even if he were to give me that compliment, if I'm like, so Kevin, like, how do you like what I've done with my hair, Kevin? And I'm really searching for it. And he goes, yeah, man, it's all right, Silas. I dig what you're doing with your hair. I would be like, I wouldn't even really feel it, would I, Kevin? It wouldn't be the same as Kevin just noticing and on his own being like, Silas, man, I love your hair. Now, I know that's a silly, quite absurd statement for a male in this day and age to say, but let's just be real with one another. We do this kind of thing all the time because we've identified too strongly in the game piece, in the role that we've playing, instead of recognizing that we're the cosmic actor that is animating that role. So strategy is manifesting, even in your relationships, and to whether or not you respond or how you respond, or the words that you use in response. The question then becomes, are you even aware that this is happening? I remember I was actually at a strip club one time, and I took 2 assistants and another lady was with me. And so we were at the strip club, and I remember quite clearly the whole, I'm not going to describe the whole setting, the whole situation for you, but being in a group environment like that changes the dynamic that you're experiencing at a club like this. And so at one point, I was trying to give some hints and clues, and I said, watch this. I said, just observe what I'm doing. Watch how I play the game. And the woman that was with me, she wasn't one of my assistants, she was quite offended by this idea that I would call this thing a game, even though every single person understands that it's just a game. So you're like, well, this is serious business. We're here to love these strippers and this sort of thing. Yes, of course we are. But if I'm not playing the game, I'll never get close to the stripper. And if you think that they are the stripper, you've missed the point of the game anyway. Then you'll just get caught up in trying to convert their belief structures. I'm not there to convert them. I'm there to set them free. Not from stripping. They can go on stripping the rest of their life. I don't care. I'm there to set them free from the identities and the beliefs that have so bound them all of their existence. Okay. So, this strategic flow is happening in the now. And then you are conscientiously acting it out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give all of my attention to the next step. And so if I were to say I want to create the physique of my dreams, and I begin a program, I put a program in place. So back in December, I decided I was going to get back in the gym. My back had healed up. I was going to get back in the gym. I was going to start doing my thing again. I put a plan together. That first week it was not intense at all, and yet my body was ridiculously sore. Anybody that's ever worked out after being laid off for a year understands how sore you get and how quickly you get sore. I loved every minute of it. But understand, I didn't do that first week's workout the second week. 12 weeks into the workout, if I was still doing the first week workout, I would not have gained any muscle. I would have barely been in any better shape than I had started. I had a plan in place. But I could have a plan in place and I could envision in my mind all I want. But if I don't actually put it in the work, so I have a plan in place, I go to the gym. I have a picture in my mind of what I'm creating. Every repetition is the only repetition. Every set, the only set. In my mind, I know that I have an entire plan, an entire 12-week plan in place. And I know in my mind the picture that I was going to have. And I nailed it because I know my body well and I'm a good creator. I absolutely killed and nailed everything that I was wanting. And if you've seen before and after photos, my physique has changed tremendously since then. But I posted the before and after photos because I wanted everyone to be able to see what you can do if you understand some of these basic principles. But every rep is your only rep. You're invested in that one rep. You cannot invest yourself in the big picture but not be invested in the move of the pawn. Because each rep is setting the tone for the next set, is setting the tone for the next day, is setting the tone for the next week. Don't get ahead of yourself. I didn't sit there going, oh, I didn't go home after the first day and go, oh, I looked in the mirror and say, oh, I'm not there. This will never happen. No, I was very excited. I was one step into the strategic plan to reclaim my physique. Does this make sense to you? If you are participating in a business, or if you are participating in physical, whether you want to create the body of your dreams, whether you want to create a business, no matter what you want, a relationship, but if you're just spontaneously flowing in it, and you don't know very well these principles that I'm laying forth, there is a point where you can spontaneously flow in absolutely everything. It's intuitive flow. But we're not there yet. Right now we're talking about the other things. Intuitive flow is quite different. But if you're just kind of going through the motions and kind of rolling with the punches and hoping for the best, you're not going to create the business that you want. You're not going to create the physique of your dreams. I know a bodybuilder that I've known for many years now. He has never gotten his pro card. He's been really close but never gotten his pro card. And you know, the reason why is because he's been doing the same damn workout for the last 10 years. And my guy I've been training with and myself will even go up to him and say, hey man, you should try this. And, no, I'm just doing my thing, man. You can take steroids all day long. You're not going to get your pro card. You have to change things. You have to have a plan in place. He doesn't have a plan. And so it doesn't matter whether you're talking what long game or strategic game you're talking about. You need to have a plan. When you approach a chessboard, you have a plan. If you're playing baseball and you step up to the plate, you have a plan on what pitches you're going to take, what pitches you're looking for, how you're going to approach that certain pitcher, so on and so forth. If you play a football game, you have a game plan. Every sports team has a game plan in place. If you're a bodybuilder, you have a plan in place on how to get to the show, and then you have a plan in place on how to deal with the show in every little incremental thing. And you know what separates, Stephanie? What separates the very great bodybuilders from average bodybuilders? Isn't it the very small things? It's the very small, minuscule things that the average bodybuilder doesn't do or doesn't notice or isn't taking serious. That's what separates the great bodybuilders from those average bodybuilders. The very small things. Small dietary issues. Because if you enter a bodybuilding show and you have a little bit of water weight, you don't look hard and you'll be judged poorly. You can be way stronger than your competition, it doesn't matter. You could actually be way bigger than your competition, and it doesn't matter. It's the small things, and so it is in every arena that you're going to play in. It's the small things. That's why I've told each and every one of you, even when it comes to your subconscious programming and when it comes to your imagination, your visualization, you need to begin to play and practice the visualization in very specific details. Very specific details. The biggest part, here's the secret to conscientious action, here's the biggest part of conscientious action. Again, we'll talk about chess. I'll use the pawn as the example. Conscientious action is this. I come to the table, I have in my mind exactly what I want to do, my strategy for beating my opponent. Okay? But I move each piece with the same purpose. In the quick videos that we did, I talked about conscientious action. I said there's two things that you really need to ask yourself. What is your purpose for doing what you're doing? If you don't have purpose for doing what you're doing, a purpose for why you want to build your body or why you want to do this, and the purpose can just be because it's fun. It doesn't have to be some elaborate purpose like, why do you want to build a business? It can just be because I have a lot of fun doing it. It doesn't have to be so that I can give money to the homeless or the poor. It doesn't have to be any of that. That's self-righteous stuff. It doesn't have to be any of that. It can just be because, man, it seemed like a fun thing to do. Like, I enjoy it. That's enough. That's enough. But understand, you need to know what this purpose is. Again, this is all happening in the now. It's not happening in time. You recognize the difference between those two things. Secondly, you need to ask, why am I doing it? And what I mean is this. It's not just what my purpose is. You would think what your purpose is not why you're doing it. Why am I doing each and every little thing? The purpose plays a role in why you're doing it, but let's get more detailed than that. Why am I really doing this one thing? So often you're just going through the motions. Tomorrow morning, if you wake up and you're heading to work, why are you going to work? You would say, well, for my purpose. What is your purpose for work? Is it to bring home a paycheck? Slave. You are not, if that is why you're going to work, you are not acting as a life artist, you are acting as a slave. Is it just because it's just what I do, it's just what I have to do, it's what I have to do to survive, blah, 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 blah. You have identified as the game piece, you are not playing as the game piece. You have lost the cosmic actor. But if you can clearly identify, I'm going and this is why I'm going today. This is why I'm going and this is exciting. And then every little action throughout your day becomes a beautiful expression of divine love and joy and whatever the purpose was in it. But if you can't clearly articulate why it is that you're going beyond some illusionary paycheck at the end of the week, then you're going to ultimately find frustration in it. You're going to find frustration in it, and the you that's going to find that frustration is the illusionary self. You will have found that you are lost in the playground. You will find that you are the one in need. The one in need is not the one that you are. So let's start there. Why are you doing it? If you say it's because I'm in need or because I need this, this is not who you are, so start over. That one is taking the game way too serious. This is last summer or whenever it was, last summer, 2 summers ago, whenever all that stuff was, all the slander and stuff was coming out about me. Everybody's saying, you should sue, you should do this, you should blah, 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 blah. You're taking this way too seriously. It was a big joke to me. Those around me didn't see it quite so much that way. But to me, it was just this big joke. Like, man, and let me tell you, the perspectives will continually flux and change. That's just the nature of the game. The reason why people do those sorts of things is because they have identified as the game piece. That's where every religion is born. That's where every identification is born. Play in the role. So what roles are you playing in? Some of you, let's just start with the basics. Some of you are playing in the role of male, others of female. Some of you are playing in the role of heterosexual, some as homosexual. Some of you are playing in the role of business owner, others of homelessness. Some are playing the role of husband, some are playing the role of wife, some of father, some of mother, grandmother, grandfather, some of, say, I'm playing the game of being sexy. Maybe I'm playing the game of not being sexy. Maybe I'm playing the game of intelligence, or I'm playing the game of philosophy or theology, but it's all a game. And the roles go on and on and on, and there are so many roles. Now, one of the things that I absolutely love is, as manifesting in such a artistic way, is random and spontaneous expressions. They are my favorite. Now, Kevin, if somebody puts you on the spot and says, dance, the dance won't be nearly as authentic as it would have been if you just felt the flow and began to dance. You felt inspiration and began to spontaneously move and gyrate your body. And, well, guess what? All of a sudden, oh, it's so much fun. And those around you, it doesn't even matter how good the dance is or not. They see your joy, and they too are moved by this freedom and this joy, and they love the dance. You can shake your willy in 100 different directions, Kevin, and it's all beautiful when people experience the beauty and the feelings and the gloriousness of it all. But if you are told you must dance, then you lose the beauty in it. You lose it. You lose it. And if you're dancing because you have to dance, right? It's like a child. Children are beautiful, spontaneous creatures, aren't they? Look at children. Watch, they can run around playing games, making random sounds and fart noises and you name it, and they are just in bliss. As soon as a parent rolls around the corner and they become self-conscious, they begin to think of themselves or an older friend, they immediately shut down all that creativity and spontaneity, don't they? A lot of times. Or if a parent if a kid has this whole performance that was birthed in spontaneity, and now the parents want to show them off and go, hey, do this. Then all of a sudden it feels to that child, even though they absolutely adore playing that role, it feels to the child as work in that moment, doesn't it? And the child doesn't want to perform in such a way. Do you know what I'm talking about? The authenticity of the spontaneity is destroyed. That's why I said at the very beginning, every time you think of yourself, you disrupt the flow. Whether that is strategic flow or spontaneous flow, you are disrupting the flow every time you think of yourself. If you have identified as the self that needs this thing, then you will always think of the self. I have to land this business deal. Now there's pressure. Now you are not going to experience the result and the fruit that you really want to experience because there's all this pressure on you to perform, and you will not authentically be expressing yourself. Listen, as a teacher, you can imagine, I've been teaching now for more than 20 years. Can you imagine with me right now, as a teacher, I have felt pressure from all angles and all sides over and over and over, especially when I was within Christianity. I was continually having people, they wanted me to say certain things. They wanted me, and if I preached something or taught something or shared something that wasn't right down their theological pipeline, they would find themselves to be irate. How dare you say this thing that doesn't meet my theological criteria? And if you said, and then somebody else had come up to you, one person would hate you at the end of a message and another person would love you. That's just the nature, right? And so I found myself being the cosmic actor that I am, Kevin, being the radical that I have always been. I found myself saying things on purpose just to rile them up. I didn't even care whether it was theologically correct. I just wanted to work the word penis into my message. And it was for no other reason than to create something. It was just an artistic expression. I was having fun. I didn't fully know it all the time, but I was having fun. I was artistically expressing myself. But there was always pressure on every side that if you didn't say the right things, I would go to certain people, when I was traveling a lot and speaking, you go to certain groups of people and you know that they are in this vein. And if you mess with their theology, man, they will be irate. Lots of pressure. Most people kind of just go with they allow the pressure to get to them. You don't know how many people when I was within Christianity that I talked to, and they said, Silas, I would love to be as free as you, but I just can't do it. It would cost my family too much money. I can't do that. And I said, oh, well, I'm not in this for money, so it doesn't matter to me. I've had people that I talked to one man. I've talked to him many times. I would say his name, but you know who he is. And I talked to him, and he's a beautiful, beautiful man, an awesome teacher. And he's been teaching for twice as long as I have. He's probably been teaching for at least, well, maybe not twice, but at least 30 years, if not longer. And he teaches some really beautiful things. And I was having a conversation with him, and he looked at me and he said, "How do you do it, man?" Like, because he kind of started to separate from Christianity to some degree, not in the same way. But he said, "How do you do it? How are you able to like survive and live and do all these things?" And I was like, my secret, come here, I'll tell you my secret. This was from a couple weeks ago. My secret is this: fuck that shit. Have you ever seen the movie The Gambler? It's a movie with Mark Wahlberg, and in the movie he plays this role as this awful gambler who he is addicted to gambling, and he loses his money, he loses everything, and he comes from a rich family, and his mom gives him $200,000 to play off his gambling debts, and he's a teacher, he's a very intelligent, very bright professor at a college. He was an author that just happened to get this job as a professor, but he's miserable, absolutely miserable. The only thing he really enjoys is just putting it all on the line. And he's not one of those gamblers that has a plan. He just goes in and puts all his money on one number or all his money on black, right? And anyway, it's this whole storyline that he gets in so deep with these money people that were loaning him money, and he gets in so deep, and at the very end of towards the end of the movie, it's one of my favorite movies for this one the whole thing is just miserable, and then at the very end it all makes sense. At the very end, he's having this conversation with the last guy that loaned him money, and the guy looks at him and says, "Have you ever been up?" And he said, "Yeah, I've been up $2.5 million." And he goes, "What?" He goes, that's the ultimate fuck you position." And Mark Wahlberg, the character, looks at him and is like, "What's that?" And he goes, "That's the position where you buy a house, you buy a car, you get all the things that you want, you have it all paid for, and then you can gamble all you want, but you don't have to worry about losing anything. And then if anybody comes, you can just say, 'Fuck you, I have what I need, I don't need anything else.'" He's like, why are you were such an idiot. Why would you gamble that away? But to make a long story short, he borrows all this money and he puts it all on the line, and he wins big, and he pays off all his competitors. And he walks out of this illegal gambling club, and he takes off his jacket and he throws his jacket down, and he's walking away, and this guy that was teaching him about this fuck you position drives beside him, and he says, "Hey man," he said, "how much money do you have?" And Mark says, "I don't have any, I don't have a cent." And he goes, "Well, I can loan you a little if you want back in the game." And Mark Wahlberg looks at him and says, "Fuck you." And the whole point of the show was this, the whole point of the movie is this: to have nothing is the ultimate position. Because if you have nothing, you can't lose anything. You cannot lose what you do not have. If you recognize that it is a game, then it's never truly yours to possess, is it? So, I just liked working that profanity into the message today. Spontaneous flow is what John 3:8 would be. So is every man who is born of spirit, like unto the wind. And in some way, as long as you're not thinking of yourself, you are like unto the wind. This is something that every single man, woman, and child wants to experience, and seldom do they. Because they're so caught up in the mind and the illusion of who they are, the story, the various stories. so attached to these stories. And as a result of all the attachment, there's each story is like double-sided Gorilla Tape. It gets really sticky. And you find yourself stuck in each and every story, each and every little thing that you've identified as this is who I am. And it creates massive disturbance in your ability to spontaneously flow in life. To think of yourself is to restrain the cosmic actor, to limit the incarnation that you are. There's no need to think of yourself. As an actor, you are playing a role. Right now, I am playing the role of teacher and you are playing the role of student. But it's just a role you're playing. Some of you act that role out better than others. But it's just a role. If you believe, I am the student, then you will take it way too serious. And you will miss the vast majority of what I have to say because you will be thinking of yourself the whole time. And so a lot of what I do is geared towards getting you beyond all of this thinking and all of this self that you have believed. When people come and say, I'm very confused, you're very confused because there's so much self. And that self isn't even real. It's just a part. When I went to Mardi Gras a couple years ago, I played the role of Joker. Do you guys remember the pictures? For some of you students who were with me then, and we had such a blast. And I dressed the part. I had the whole. I went online and bought the replicated versions of the Joker's outfit and face paint, and if you saw pictures, I think I did that just about as well as I could. I literally probably had several hundred people over the course of that one day come up to me to ask to take pictures with me. Hey, will you take pictures with me? Hey, Joker, will you take pictures? Yeah, we want a picture with you, because I pulled it off so well. But I was so in the role. I wasn't just dressed as the Joker. I was in the role of the Joker. I had my back hunched and why so serious? I had the whole thing, from the walk and the hunch and the voice and the sadistic stare. I had the whole nine. I was playing the role. By the end of the night, Beth was so terrified. She said, Silas, please just tell me you're still in there. And I'd be like, and I would look at her and I would just give her the sadistic look, this creepy look. She would go, Silas, no, stop, just stop for 1 second. I'm just, please. And I would just laugh and I would say, okay, I'm here. I would break character just for one moment to let her know that wasn't who I really was. It was just a role I was playing for the day. But it took me several days to really exit the role. Throughout the next couple of days, I would periodically find myself talking like the Joker. Mixing in, and I think even classes, the next couple classes after that, I would occasionally find myself talking like the Joker. I would just find myself using this language, and so, you know, and because I was just embedded in that role. That's what I like to do. I'm an actor. I like to play parts. What you haven't realized is the part that you're playing right now is that. It's a part. Stephanie is a part. It's a role that you're playing. You've just believed that role is who you are to such a degree that you haven't been able to pull back and recognize the actor that lies behind it all. And I'm revealing and pointing to the actor that's behind it all. Over the next couple weeks, I'm going to talk about personality and how you can begin to even change your personality if you don't like it. or if you want to shift various parts of it. But this becomes a very dangerous psychological game if you don't realize that that is not who you are. The only way you can truly be the authentic self is to let go of all the concept of self. And then you can be whatever authentic role you want to play. Because every expression is an authentic expression if you're really recognizing that you're playing a part. So you think of authenticity too many times as this is who I am and I'm being me, my authentic self. That's not authentic at all. That's delusional at best. All you're doing is identifying as the most recent version of your personhood and acting out that role. That's the reason why so many people are miserable. I hate myself. I want to kill myself. How many people each and every day are committing suicide because they've identified as the role that they're trying to play? All they had to do was change the role. But no one ever told them that they were the actor that is manifesting or animating the character. Within religion, they say character is far more important than anything else, and they heap all this moral law upon you. And I've literally heard so many times within Christianity and seminary and Bible college and so on and so forth, and from pastors from behind pulpits across America, they say character is the most important thing. No, a character is just that. It's a character. It's a role that you're playing. The most important thing is to realize that you're not the character. And then what will ultimately come out is purity. What is purity? What does it mean to the pure, all things are pure? Most people think that that means to the holy, all things are holy. That's not what that passage of Scripture means at all. Because to think of yourself in terms of holiness is just self-righteousness. I'm holy because somebody else is not holy. What if there was no unholy people? Would you even know what holy meant? No, you wouldn't. The only reason why holy exists is because in some way you've thought of yourself as unholy or downright dirty at times, and so you think of yourself as holy. But that passage of Scripture, to the pure, all things are pure, doesn't mean that at all. Purity really is the space of nothingness. Purity is the emptiness. A pure mind is an empty mind. Is one that recognizes the fullness of who you are, which is the emptiness of who you are, and is not caught up in all the character traits. And then you just simply animate and manifest as this perfection that's not moved by either holiness or impurity. That's not moved by good and evil. It sounds an awful lot like Eden, doesn't it? When you're no longer moved by your circumstances because you are the manifestation of your circumstances. Now you're the cosmic actor again, playing a role. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget who you are. I'm going to finish up with this. To be a whole, you recognize that you're the cosmic actor. There are three very specific things that I want you to begin to cultivate. I've talked about all three of them, but I want to just bring them together and so that you can really cultivate them. Because these three things are super important to be on the same energetic flow or the same energetic page with, okay? And that is visualization, speech, and calculated flow. If you're not consciously and subconsciously in agreement, then you're going to miss the speech part. Is going to be missing. Your speech should absolutely be in alignment with what you are visualizing. And when your visualization and your speech are on the same wavelength, then calculated flow in the now begins to become an easy thing. You might get lost along the way, it's okay. There will be tons of those that aren't, that will point you back to who you truly are. And there will be lots of people that are still lost as well, that'll still point you back to who you are. You have lots of reminder. Frustration is a reminder that that's not who you are. If you're frustrated, all that frustration is reminding you that somewhere along the lines you've got lost and it's not who you really are. If you're angry, that's all that is. Anger is just a reminder that this is not who you truly are. Okay? So, understand these things. These are 3 fields that you need to cultivate: visualization, speech, and calculated flow. The calculated flow, when I do consulting and things like that over the years, when I have done it, I don't really do a lot of it anymore, but when I've done it, that's what I would help with the calculated flow. I would oftentimes help one step at a time calculate certain things to be able to put a plan in place. But don't get caught in tomorrow. The number one important thing you must realize when it comes to calculated flow is this: you must not get caught in the web of tomorrow. All right, I'm going to wrap it up right there. Let's open up for any questions. Go ahead, Kaylee. I do not have my mouse to unmute you. You'll have to do it on your end.
I had to grab my notebook. This is kind of just like a curious question. I think you kind of answered at the end. Like, what would happen if everyone realized having nothing was everything? Like, would there even be a game anymore?
Yeah, of course there would. Yeah. The game doesn't require duality. The game is actually is terrifically played in singularity. The thing is, those that have realized, those who have reconciled opposites, those who have reconciled the opposites, there are no more opposites. That's when the game becomes extravagantly fun. I mean, it becomes delightful, because now I'm not trapped by this whole idea that I have to do anything, or that it's not a life and death situation anymore. And in this way, I've escaped the whole life, and I've escaped life and death altogether. See, we have an entire generation of people, especially within religious circles, and forever they've been enthralled by this idea. But especially now, for some reason, maybe it's only because I'm much more conscious of now than I was conscious of 500 years ago. But they're really obsessed with immortality. The thing is, to transcend life and death, don't just transcend death. That's ridiculousness. You must transcend life. Because as long as there is one, there will be the other. Until you transcend them both, you won't recognize what true life is.
That's my other question. Is it possible to, I mean, surely it is, but is it possible to create let me break that. Create an avatar that isn't subject to death, aging, or permanent injury?
Of course there is. But it's not going to... I'm going to say this, of course there is, but as long as it's coming from the idea that you want to escape injury and death and all that, you won't. It only comes in the realization that you're none of it.
Right. I feel it, like I struggled with that for a while, with them keeping on taking out my skull. Not like dying, but just like being tired, like being broken. And then, I don't remember what it was, something you said to me in a recording made me realize, like, how unimportant this experience of not having a skull is. And I just realized how nice it would be, and how nice it is to just not care about the physical condition.
But I want to say...
I don't think I'm there yet, but...
Yeah. And I think that's wonderful, but I'm going to point out, to not care is to care. In some way, to not care is to care. In some way, to say, it's not important is to say that it is extremely important. If this is not important, then what is important? This is what I mean. In emptiness and true emptiness, beyond thought, beyond concept, beyond form, beyond it all, this is where you really are. This is the one that can absolutely manifest as that avatar, as that game piece that does not give to age or death or physical injury. But that one not only doesn't care, but it's just an effortless manifestation of that reality. I don't get caught up. One of the things that I was going to say to you guys is, this is a life artistry school. There are only a couple things that I'm actually in the long game on. The vast majority of my existence, and I'm talking like 99% of what you think of when you think of Silas, is purely spontaneous. If you guys don't realize yet, everything that I really teach is purely spontaneous. I really don't know what I'm going to say before I say it. Every blue moon, every once in a while, I'll have a couple notes written down or something that was inspiring to me, and you'll see me check it or something because I want to say it in a certain way. But the vast majority of what I teach, and that is just like the rest of my life, it is purely spontaneous. But there are along the way certain things that I actually strategically do, because strategy is something that's a whole lot of fun for me. But that's all it is. It's fun. It's a game. There are certain things that I want to do. Why? Beth has said to me before, why do you want to do that? That's just for me, not for anyone else. It's not for any other purpose. It's just because for me in this one moment, I find it to be exhilarating. It is fun. But it's not real. It's not something that anything is hinged upon. So I'm not moved if it doesn't go as planned. So this is what I mean. Now, this what I'm talking about here to you, Kaylee, is something so much bigger than what this summer class entails. And really, honestly, it's even bigger than what I'm teaching via mentorships and stuff. It's really only something that can be imparted or realized. It's not something that can be learned. Go ahead. You have your hand raised again.
So I guess, I understand, my perception is pretty limited right now. But I guess, what's bigger to me than, not caring is being able to accept whatever happens and being in whatever state. I don't want to be afraid of dying, and I don't want to be trying to live. I guess there's a lot to learn there. I just want to be happy.
When a fish bites the bait that's been thrown into the water and it latches onto the hook, it thrashes about to try to escape this misery, this hook, this feeling, this being caught. It thrashes about to escape death. And with every thrash, it makes the hook go tighter in its mouth. The thing you resist, you empower. The thing you think about, you empower. If you want to transcend life and death, let go of life and death. Let go of the idea of transcendence altogether. These aren't things that you can do, though. These aren't things that you can learn. So, this is why this is all part of the game. It's part of the game, and it's meant to be fun. It's meant to be a beautiful exploration for you, a beautiful time of playing. And this is, I told Beth this week, I think I was telling Beth, or I was telling somebody, I can't remember who it was, but I said, in some way I'm just a trickster. I'm just playing a big game with all of you. The only thing that's really serious in all of it is that beyond everything, beyond all the silliness and all the crazy wild displays of of acting and all that stuff. Beyond it all, the only thing that's really serious is I'm pointing you continually to this one that's immovable, unshakably you and me. That's the only thing that is truly serious, but it's not serious either because it's beyond serious or non-serious. So, anybody else? Any other questions? No? Okay. I had a blast with you. I had a blast. If you have any more questions, bring them to the mentorship, okay?
Okay.
Okay. I had a blast with you guys tonight. Thanks for being here. Thanks for entertaining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed. And next week, next Sunday, we're going to launch off into some other beautiful things. It'll probably get deep, at least tricky deep. And so we're going to have a blast next Sunday, same time, same place. This for those in the mentorship, give me about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll get rolling. I love you guys so much. I'll talk to you soon. Good night.